Welcome to Her and Boss, the podcast designed to help you find your inner entrepreneur. Her and Boss is brought to you by recent graduates, Anissa, Lucy, Megan, Ben, Sarah, and me, Nikki, as we enter our careers and speak to the inspiring women who can help us along the way. Hi everyone, this is your host Nikki, and today I'm talking to Josephine Phillips. Josephine graduated from King's College London earlier this year with a degree in physics and philosophy, and has since started her own business. Josephine's business, Sojo, is a fashion tech company which aims to make the industry more sustainable by connecting consumers with local seamsters, to take the effort away from repairing clothes, encourage secondhand shopping, and prevent as many damaged clothes from going to landfill. In this episode, we talk all about how the fast fashion industry impacts on sustainability, feminism, human rights, and how Josephine is striving to live more sustainably in her personal and business lives. As always, I learned so much from chatting to Josephine, and I hope you do too. Enjoy! This episode is sponsored by Rise, created by Barclays and Barclays Eagle Labs. Rise is a global community of the world's top innovators working together to create the future of financial services. Eagle Labs is on a mission to support the UK's entrepreneurial community through access to mentoring, training, and co-working spaces. Hi, Josephine.
Hi there, Nikki.
So, as you know, we start every episode with 3 quickfire icebreaker questions. Are you ready for yours?
Yes, I am.
Okay, the first one is, if you had your own late night talk show, who would you invite as your first guest?
Oh, wow. Okay, quick fire. I think it probably would have to be AOC. I'm just immediately picking her because she's like the love of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good shout. If aliens landed on Earth tomorrow and offered to take you home with them, would you go?
Absolutely not. No, I definitely no, I just definitely wouldn't. I feel like, I mean, that's kind of a bad answer because I studied physics, and so I'm meant to be very interested in space. But no, I'm very, very happy here in London even. Yeah.
That's fair enough. I thought you were going to say, absolutely, yeah, I'm so excited. And then the last one is, what is your favorite item that you've bought this year?
Oh, wow. It's definitely, and no, I do know this, it's definitely this two-piece pinstripe suit that I found in a charity shop
Ooh.
for £10 for both, it was £10 inclusive. And the trousers were a little bit big, and I kind of love that because it sort of feeds into Sojo and me being like, I can buy it anyway and get it tailored to me. So yeah, that's my favorite.
Very nice. That's a good answer and a really good transition as well to what we're going to talk about today. So you are the founder of Sojo. I could try and explain it, but I'm sure you'll do it more justice than I can. Can you let us all know what Sojo is and how you got the idea for it?
Yeah, so usually to make it easy to understand, I sort of say think Deliveroo, but for clothing alterations and repairs. So essentially, we connect customers with local seamster businesses through our app and bicycle delivery service so that people can get their clothes altered or repaired with a few simple clicks. And for me, the idea came from the fact that, like a couple of years ago, I made a move away from fast fashion because it didn't align with my feminist values in terms of the garment workers in the supply chain and the fact that they're majority women of color and they're exploited and oppressed, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so made my move away from fast fashion, and that meant that I walked into the lovely hands of secondhand clothes, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I was shopping secondhand all the time. However, in sort of the classic pain point way, I found that every time I was secondhand shopping, I was finding clothes that I loved that weren't my size. So essentially, like when I found a pair of trousers that were fabulous, what are the chances they're my exact waist and sort of hip and length and everything? And I did go about ways of trying to fix them or try to sew them myself and things like that, but it was just a disaster. And I thought in sort of in very Gen Z fashion, I was like, I want it on my phone. So essentially I was like, I'm going to create a really easy and hassle-free way for me to do this.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I said this to you the first time we met, but I am exactly the same. And whenever I buy clothes, I find that even if it's not from a charity shop, if it's from like a high street brand or a well-known brand, I find that just the fit of clothes is never going to be perfect. And one thing I told myself I'd do in this lockdown is learn to sew. We're in lockdown number 2. I still cannot sew. I still have a pile of clothes in the back of my closet that don't fit me, but I refuse to part with. So yeah, I'm one of the Gen Zers who's looking forward to this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, it's definitely obviously for all clothes because everyone has a unique body shape. I mean, you cannot
Mhm.
fit one pair of trousers into like and sort of split it up into like however many numbers and think that will fit everyone's unique body. And equally in terms of the clothes in the closet and the learning how to sew, I'm there. Like literally, I was like, it would be so fun for me to have a sewing machine, sew my clothes. I
Yeah.
literally was planning on making my own clothes, being like, I'll buy materials and make my clothes. And it's just like, no, it's not going to happen. So that's why Sojo is here for you instead.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to talk a little bit about maybe the misconceptions people have around like the fashion industry, because so I follow you on Instagram and you guys post loads of awesome content with like stats around, what happens to clothes. But for me, so in uni, I was someone who, I don't know how, but literally every month I would get a new ASOS package and I was constantly ordering clothes and I
Mm,
didn't really know why I was doing it, but I
mm,
made myself feel better by saying that, well, if I don't like them or if I don't want to wear them anymore, I'll donate them to charity. And
mm.
then I started reading that, donating things to charity shops doesn't mean that you're kind of being part of this circular
Mm.
economy and that your clothes are being reused. So I'd kind of love to kind of hear from you as a bit of an expert more about, some of the myths that people might have around fashion.
Yeah, so I think one of the hardest things is actually the complete lack of transparency. So like
Hmm.
sort of you're placing me sort of as an expert in this field, but fundamentally, even if you're to look into it, it's very, very difficult to find out exact facts about what happens because a lot of it is negative and therefore it's sort of
Hmm.
hidden. So quite often a brand will never post about its statistics of which returned items they put back on the shelf and which they don't. And they do say
Hmm.
that sort of the research does say that it's sort of like 30% of what gets sent back in terms of returns, especially from the fast fashion brands where the items themselves aren't that expensive or that high quality. They essentially don't get put back on the shelf, and quite often they will go to landfill. And equally with charity shops, there is quite a
Hmm.
significant amount that is either shipped to Africa in a way that's not sort of so it's not sold and then the charity money is then foregoing to a scheme or something. For example, in Africa, quite a lot of it, I watched a documentary on the fact that a lot of it goes to like the shores of Ghana, and that's actually
Hmm.
saturating their clothes market, so they actually aren't able to make and sustain their own fashion industry there because of all, I mean, what it's described actually as dead white man's
Yeah.
clothes is how they see it. But yeah,
Oh
so there's
gosh.
so there's that happens, and equally a lot of clothes that go to charity shops also end up in landfill. So there's this like sort of there's this disconnect between what a consumer is doing and thinking they're doing and what actually happens. And I think one really big thing in terms of the sustainable fashion movement is transparency at every
Hmm.
aspect of what happens to the clothes. So from the beginning, where the materials are being sourced, where I know there's sort of like lots of issues around suicide rates with like farmers in India who farm
Wow.
cotton, and like from that early stage, from the fact that the cotton isn't organic and the pesticides are harming the environment, to the stage with the dyeing, to the stage with the garment workers, to the stage where you're buying it, returning it, picking different sizes, every stage, taking it to the charity shop, disposing it yourself, even putting it in a clothes recycling unit. So I sort of have one a couple of streets away from me.
Hmm.
Again, it's not potentially going to get recycled. There needs to be a complete look at like the entire value chain of sort of a fashion item, and we need more transparency essentially.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you're right, it's a whole supply chain down to kind of the human rights of the people who are actually working on the garments through to then producing them being shipped to wherever they're being sold, and then, whatever the consumer chooses to do with them. It is a big issue. And I think so just for context for the listener, we're recording this right after Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and it was quite interesting to
Mm.
see some of the news reports that came out over the weekend around how some brands are able to sell their clothes for such a minuscule price, literally for pennies.
It's shocking, yeah. So yeah, we did a sort of post on Pretty Little Thing, and the fact that they were selling over 3,000 items for less than 30p or something, and that just tells you, irrespective of whether they're making a loss on that or they're trying to get rid of
Yeah.
unsold stock, irrespective of that, the item obviously does not hold value, and the reason being is because it was so cheap to make in the first place. The quality
Mm.
of the items, the quality of materials, obviously holds no value to them, that they're essentially offloading it at 4p for a pair of trousers or whatever. I mean, it's obscene. And how is that ever going to be loved by the end customer? It was so distressing, if I'm
Yeah.
honest. It was really upsetting. And yeah, it's really about, I suppose it's just like this huge education drive. But I slowly think we're moving there, to be honest. I'm really, really hopeful for the future.
Yeah, that point you made as well about how if you buy something for that cheap, how does it then have value to you as a consumer?
Mm,
It does make it seem
mm.
almost disposable. Yeah, it really is just fascinating. I'd love to hear then kind of how you kind of individually as a consumer are taking steps to be more sustainable in the way you kind of shop and consume fashion.
Yeah, so obviously, like, I mean, I was like you, I was like any other normal individual growing
Yeah.
up. So yeah, essentially, I was also shopping on ASOS and just Zara and wherever. And it's sort of, I'm trying to think of how it really came about in terms of when I started to realize. I think it was because I decided as an individual and my values were becoming very strong that I
Hmm.
wanted, this concept of like shopping with your values. So I've spoken about this before, but like actively being like, oh, I'd love to support smaller female owned businesses, or I'd love to
Hmm.
support a black owned business and everything like that. And the moment you start thinking my purchases should be affected by my morals or values or whatever you want to call it, I then sort of brought into question the fact that these sort of fast fashion brands, it just came to light that I was realizing that actually at the bottom of this sort of food chain of creation of
Hmm.
this billion dollar industry were all these women in these developing countries who were being exploited in order to create the clothes that we buy, wear, get rid of,
Hmm.
buy, wear, get rid of. And I just like it really, really didn't sit well with me whatsoever. And then as I made my move into that, I then started to learn about the environmental aspect as well.
Hmm.
Since then, it's sort of been a no turning back, only because I actually find it incredibly difficult to turn back once your eyes are opened. It's very hard to sort of like unsee what you know and everything. So that has meant that sort of the last 2 years I haven't had, or at least definitely the last year, haven't had any sort of what I would describe as like fast fashion purchases, unless
Hmm.
they're sort of through secondhand. And equally, I will like to support smaller, sustainable brands as well. So I'm very happy for new clothes if they're sustainably made. So definitely we promote that on our Instagram and that kind of thing as well, because I do think there's definitely space for a change of a way to create clothes. So it's not that I sort of don't
Hmm.
think any
Yeah.
new clothes should be made and people shouldn't buy, but it's just about, yeah, buying the right clothes and also trying to buy less often and therefore higher quality, and therefore you can sort of spend. So really making sure you love the clothes you buy, and just sort of having a checklist of what you go through. So if I decide I like an item, I'll think about it for quite a while before I buy it. If it's, just to make sure that it will stay. I mean, I sort of described it the other day as like, you should treat it like a tattoo, hopefully you should be loving it
Mm.
for the next 20 years. Or at least that's what our generations above us did. Literally, my mum's given me stuff that she had in her 20s. And you just think about if you buy sort of a 7.99 dress now, it's not going to be something you hand down to
Hmm.
your daughter in 30 years time. So I do, yeah, there's lots of different ways where I sort of work through whether I make a purchase or not. But yeah, it's definitely just important to just be conscious of it. I think that's the first step, and to just try.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that idea of buying something as if it were a tattoo and, really taking the time to think about it. Because I don't think, I mean, I'll speak from my experience. I wouldn't say that I am like 100% sustainable when it comes to the fashion that I shop, but being aware of the impact that my purchases has definitely made a difference. So this year I'm trying, can't really go to charity shops at all closed, but if I want something new, first looking on Depop or looking on like a secondhand marketplace before just like automatically going to like one of the big fast fashion brands. And I think that's made a difference. And then making sure people understand it is about shopping with principles rather than just not shopping at all. You're kind of not being told what not to do. You're just being told there are other ways to do it. And maybe this is a better way.
That's the thing, is like, I think there's a bigger discussion to be had about our
Mhm.
consumerism, but I don't think that's a kind of shift that I'm pushing, because I don't want to make people feel guilty about the way they are because of the system they've grown up in, essentially. So, for example, like the fashion rental platforms, I think have completely hit, the nail on the head, only because they're filling the gap of like you craving a repeated new outfit that you maybe take a
Mhm.
photo of you wearing it on Instagram, and then like, oh, God forbid you wear it again type thing. But they're allowing people to do that because it's still sustainable, because it's rental. So you're
Mm.
renting it from the wardrobe of someone who is maybe around the corner or the other side of London or whatever. And essentially that's allowing people to still be as big a consumers as they want, but nothing new is being created. And maybe every week someone else is renting that piece. And I think that's a really, really great way to do it, because you're not then trying to create a huge cultural shift of like
Yeah.
you should not want to consume, because naturally we do, especially in the age of social media and obviously a lot of peer pressure and things like that.
Yeah, no, I so agree. And I saw a stat as well on your Instagram that kind of stood out to me around I think it was around like that psychological rush you get when you buy something new and you feel really good, how
Mm,
it can end so
mm.
quickly. And so, arguably it's better for you if you spend less money on secondhand items or on rentals so that you can keep getting that feeling but without having a detrimental impact. I just thought that was really interesting.
No, definitely 100%. I think that I can't not admit that it feels lovely
It
to
feels
wear
good, yeah.
something new. I mean, I literally, even if my sister's like, if she puts something in the charity pile and then like I take it out of there, it just has this, it has the idea that you've got something new in your wardrobe feels really wonderful. And as much as I've definitely got to try and fight that habit as much as possible, because
Mhm.
it's not like the most sustainable clothes, the ones in your closet already. At the same time, like I'm not going to deny people that they shouldn't be having that happiness, and I'm trying to find ways to indulge in that whilst it's still as sustainable as it possibly could be. So I'm also not 100% in terms of my wardrobe. If I was, I'd
Mhm.
probably just like live naked. But yeah, no, I I'm just trying to do my best as everyone is and trying.
Nice. Yeah. And I guess turning now towards something that could be part of the solution for this, how are you making sure that with Sojo, kind of every step of the way, you're being as sustainable as you can be with your operating model? And what's the kind of thought that's gone into that?
Yeah, so currently, yeah, so I essentially trying to look through every aspect of our business with a sustainable lens. So from yeah, so this, for example, the rider bags, I was looking to get sort of manufactured ethically in England with sort of made out of recycled plastics and everything. Unfortunately, that was
Mhm.
just a bit too expensive right from the beginning. So essentially, I went on eBay and bought a lot of secondhand sports bags to give to my riders,
Mhm.
and that's just sort of like the interim fit for what's going to work. And sort of you can get them quite cheap on eBay, and like they're gonna carry clothes, and they're doing their function. But then equally, we sort of have thank you cards that have been made out of recycled paper, for example.
Mhm.
And equally, our bags that have been made are sort of, yeah, they're brown craft paper that have been made from a company who they're manufacturing, again, audited, ethical, but it's also from like an FC something. It's like it's basically forests that have been certified
Oh,
to
yeah.
allow to make
Yeah.
paper regenerative or whatever. So they repeatedly upkeep the forest, and it's just thinking through the small things, to even sort of the order tags, making sure that the string is biodegradable, just everything. I'm really trying to
Mm.
think through things to make sure we're not having a negative impact. But obviously, again, it's always a learning curve, and not every company can be perfect. So I'm very aware that, especially with the slight mob mentality that's out there a little bit, I am worried and conscious about sort of someone pointing out and being like, that's not sustainable. But you've got
Yeah.
to be open to sort of hearing that and then trying to work around it and trying to make it better.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think it sounds like kind of going through each step of kind of the customer journey, but then also the journey for your riders and your seamsters to just think about how, at each point, what can we do to be a little bit more sustainable? And I think it's great that you're kind of accepting that you're going to have to be open and transparent, because it can feel quite vulnerable to like put yourself out there and then have someone say like, you said you're going to be sustainable and you didn't do that. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It goes back to what you said earlier about the whole fashion industry just needs to be more transparent
Mm,
if we really want
mm.
to make a change.
But I do also think, like, it's worth saying, because it's something that I do think about, and I know that Grace Beverley, the founder of Tala, the sort of sustainable activewear,
Yeah.
have spoken about, which is the fact that what's very difficult is that sustainable companies, or companies that are building themselves to do good, are held to a much higher standard and seem to be dragged down quite a lot more than by a lot of people, as opposed to companies who maybe just don't even have a sustainable mission whatsoever or aren't even trying. So I do feel like the moment you put yourself out there as as sustainable, as
Yeah.
trying to do good, I do feel like you either have to be sort of not doing it at all, or held to a very 100% sustainable. And I do think we need to be more open with brands to be working towards it and trying. And fundamentally, if we're making an incredibly significant impact in repairing all these clothes instead of them going to landfill, and also being a game changer for secondhand shopping to increase the ability because there's less sizing restrictions.
Mhm.
Even if I decided I then wanted to have plastic bags, which I don't, because obviously they're bad for the planet, we're still doing a huge impact on the fashion side and making it more circular. And I am obviously going to use as much sort of sustainable materials and everything, but I do just think that people need to be more accepting, more open to a journey of a business and trying to get things to their right place. And everyone's trying to do better, but nobody's perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, completely, completely. And how have you found it kind of getting people on board? So obviously you could say you're a tech founder because you've got this app and this platform that's connecting people with Seamsters, with, delivery drivers. How have you found that you've had to kind of educate people on all fronts of that? We've kind of already spoken about the consumer aspect, but in terms of like the Seamsters and the delivery drivers, do they understand what you're trying to achieve with your business? And how have you found it trying to kind of bridge all those gaps and get all those people kind of sold on your idea?
Yeah, so I think the riders are 100% on board only because we only got our riders through me posting an Instagram post. So anyone who sort of applied
Okay.
has been within that network, and they're actually it sort of was like they it was like 70 riders applied, I think, and it was nearly all women. And they're all very, and I sort of said on the post, like, I really want you
Oh,
to be interested
awesome.
in
Yeah.
sustainability and the business. And I think that means what I have is like an amazing group of people who really believe in the business, believe in me, believe in the mission. So they're really on board. And also because there's been other businesses like Deliveroo, the model's already there in terms of them understanding that, the part-time work is very
Mhm.
flexible and all that kind of thing. The Seamsters, on the other hand, sort of are not quite as sort of in the same category as like the people who follow me on Instagram. They are more sort of older. They potentially been running their business for 25 years. They have never been tech savvy or don't have tech involved
Mhm.
in their business. I'm also very young, and me coming sort of in and being like, this is what I'm doing, it has been a little bit more of a challenge. And I think actually, I mean, the first sort of seamster I spoke about how we're targeting the secondhand market, and his reaction was very much like, nobody wants secondhand clothes. I don't believe this is going to work. Like, sorry, nobody's
Oh,
going to want
interesting.
it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. It's really booming market. And he was like, no, like nobody's going to wear somebody's old, that was his attitude. And it actually therefore changed my conversation that I was then bringing to the
Mm.
seamsters, as opposed to sort of talking to them about the consumers that I'm going to be targeting. I'm speaking to them more about what I'm bringing them. So essentially just
Yeah.
talking in more broad terms about tapping into a younger demographic and bringing the business straight to their doorstep. And I think that's just easier to understand, as opposed to speaking about the deep values of our company at this early stage where I'm trying to onboard them.
Yeah. Would you say that's kind of one of the lessons you've learned through this entrepreneurial venture? Because I imagine you're not running a kind of necessarily a direct to consumer business. You've got kind of loads going on in the background with other businesses as well. I don't know. I imagine that must be quite challenging having to constantly be changing your pitch and looking at your business from all these different angles.
Yeah, that's the thing, is actually it's definitely something I've learned. Whereas I sort of was very tunnel vision because the idea obviously came from
Mm.
me, and I was very tunnel visioned on the consumer side of things, of being like, this is great for consumers. And I think I therefore omitted thinking deeply through the other two lenses. And I do think you've really got it right by saying that I completely have to change my pitch. So I should not be walking into a seamster pitch or cold call or whatever it is, talking about secondhand clothes market is booming at the moment. It's just completely somewhat irrelevant to them, and I should be talking about everything that is relevant to them, which I actually changed my pitch then to be, which I know taps into, not to be stereotypical, but taps into their beliefs. But I sort of was being like, young people don't go outside that much to the high street anymore. Young people are always on their phone. I'm creating something where
Yeah.
you can get to them through their phone. And in their minds they sort of will think, oh yes, I know the kids are all on their phone these days. And so sort of speaking to them, or trying to speak to them in a way that really taps into them, and sort of talking about how you won't have to do anything. We'll do all the sourcing of the customers, we'll do all the delivery, we'll do all the organization. You don't have to pay to be on the platform. We just get a commission from bringing you business. And essentially, like, that's really, that's something that actually, the moment it's laid out in that way, they're really on board with.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I guess so we've kind of spoken about like the consumer side, the different people you are contracting out to help you make this platform work. But in terms of the actual tech platform, you mentioned earlier you have a physics degree. Have you created this app yourself? What's been your experience becoming a tech founder?
Absolutely not. I have not done it myself. That was a huge decision at the beginning where I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, I do like to wear a lot of hats. Like, I'm happy to be all the hats that I need to be at the moment. So sort of where in down the line there'll be people who are my social media manager or marketing strategy or whatever, or sales rep, cold calling, or even the admin, all of it, sort of the legals, the contract drawing. I'm happy to wear all the hats aside from as being a software engineer. I just was just like, it's something that I definitely could have done. Like, yes, did physics, yes, did some of those modules or whatever. It just was not an option for me. I just knew that I wouldn't like it. And there are people out there in the world who like doing it. So it was really just about finding those people. And I've been so lucky to work with two really wonderful software engineers who were both graduates come June. And they've both been working with me over the last few months to build it out. And we've done the website and the app, and it's iOS and Android. And they are fantastic. And I'm just really lucky to have had that kind of situation.
So am I right in saying that you're a solo founder? You don't have a co-founder or like a founding team or anything yet?
Yeah, no, it's just me, and yeah, both the engineers are none of them is neither of them are full time or employed by, so it is still just me.
A lot of the people that we've spoken to have become a founder maybe later on in their career or done it as a co-founder in a team. What's your experience been like as a solo founder?
Yeah, I mean, I looked for a co-founder. I did. I sort of you need a co-founder who uh, doesn't have the exact same skill set as you, essentially. So I definitely was looking for a technical co-founder, and unfortunately, all the people I surround myself in my network seem to be more of my side and my skill set, and my
Mhm.
personality, if you know what I mean. So I looked around and I was a bit like, oh, I mean, actually, aside from my degree, but yeah, I looked around and didn't really see anyone, and I did go to quite a few events, but then comfortably decided that in order to move the business forward, I sort of was looking for about 6 months without starting actually building the
Mhm.
app. And I was like, I need to move this forward. So decided obviously to get these two software engineers on board in sort of a paid capacity. And that meant that I sort of became very comfortable with the fact that I was going to do this on my own and not sort of have a
Mm.
partner in it. It has its ups and downs, mainly downs. No, luckily, no, I'm joking. Luckily, I don't have to ask anyone about to make decisions, if you know what I mean. And like I'd say I'm quite decisive. I also, yeah, I'm quite opinionated. So luckily, there's no blows that are coming between me and my co-founder. But it's like it can get quite lonely. It can feel like a lot of weight is on your shoulder,
Mhm.
like a lot of weight. If this fails, it's just very, very, very much my fault, and no one else's. So unless it's a bug that makes it fail, then it's not my fault.
Just
No,
always blame it on that.
exactly. No, but I've become part of a few, like I'm part of my university accelerator program. So I'm connected to other entrepreneurs, which makes it a lot less lonely.
Mhm.
And I have sort of a really good support network. So that's been all right. I'm still open to finding someone in the future, maybe. But currently I'm happy doing it on my ones.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. It must be quite empowering though, because I mean, it's easy to look at it from the negative. If it fails, it's your fault. But if it succeeds, which I'm sure it will, I think it's a brilliant idea. It's all you, like you've done that.
So true. Oh my goodness. I've literally, I'm not gonna lie, yeah, have not thought about it in that way because all I think, obviously, maybe it just what keeps me up at night, but all I think of, is it going wrong? It's true. If it is good, I can very, very much feel proud that it was, grassroots very much me from the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad we've got a positive outcome here.
Yeah, for sure.
So another thing I wanted to ask about is you've kind of gone into this, you've thrown yourself in the deep end as a solo founder. When you came up with the idea for Sojo, were you kind of looking for a business idea? Were you motivated to be an entrepreneur, or was it just kind of happenstance, the stars aligned, you thought this is a great idea, I'm going to run with it?
Yeah, no, I definitely would say I was going to end up being an entrepreneur or business owner or startup founder, irrespective of whether I landed on this one. I do think that it's just, yeah, I do think I just sort of always had a feeling that that was what I wanted to do, and I'd been selling on Depop the first couple of years of uni, and they say that's sort of like very much like a business building, like it's just a small business
Yeah.
that you're running essentially. And then equally started like a biodegradable tote bag business that had sort of like feminist slogans on them. Very small, but anyway, I enjoyed working on projects and I enjoyed working on things that I decided to get passionate about. And I think I was going to land on something as well because I've never been sort of passionate about working, starting at the bottom and working at a big
Mhm.
company. Whereas I know that works for so many people. I've never sort of sat well with that, and also my dad's an entrepreneur, and so like it just like I think it's a little bit genetic. And yeah, I definitely think that if it wasn't Sojo, it would be something else.
Yeah. Do you know, I love that you say you kind of knew that you didn't want to be a cog in a giant wheel by working at another company. I think so a lot of our listeners are kind of at the start of their careers or in university, and I think it's something that you don't really think about. I think that
Mm,
like the
mm,
trajectory, at least in my mind, was always like just get a job somewhere
mm.
and then I feel like my eyes were opened up to like all of these different opportunities. But at the same time, I think so many young people do have side hustles and they'll sell on
Mm.
Depop or they'll have Instagram based businesses, all of these incredible things that, could become your full time career or be the start of something if you really want to like put yourself into that. And I think
Yeah.
it's interesting as well. You say your dad's an entrepreneur. I wonder if, do you think having him as a kind of role model to look up to has made a difference in your decisions?
I think 100,000%. I think it's just like it's sort of that notion of like you cannot be what you cannot see. And I think that
Mm,
I mean that's I use that phrase in terms of like sort of like not seeing sort of black representation or female representation, and therefore not thinking that you can be that. But
mhm,
equally, like yeah, definitely watching my dad do his own thing, and equally being that way, the him doing his own thing is what allowed him to carve out a successful life path, and sort of seeing that you can sort of you get out what you put in, and equally that he is able to live the life that he wants. And he sort of, worst comes to worst, if he decides he doesn't want to work for a few days, that's just a decision. Like you just that control of your own destiny. It feels really, I don't know, it's always felt really wholesome. And fundamentally, like a really big part of it as well was that he was always there. So he worked from
mm,
home because he was a business owner from home, and that meant actually that like every single day when we came home from school, and just like every summer holiday when we took our 8 weeks, he took his 8 weeks. And he was so present. And I think that that in my life was very much like, I would love to be a mother like that. So
mhm.
completely present and also completely running a business. So I just think that that was definitely something that I looked up to and was like, I very much want to emulate that.
Yeah, no, that's so lovely, and I think the work-life benefits of, I mean, at the moment, most people are working from home anyway, but the kind of being more your own boss and having more control over your
Mm,
time, I think is
mm.
really important. I think particularly as well to a lot of women who, might have other caring responsibilities that they can't share with a partner. What would you like, I guess, what advice would you have for aspiring entrepreneurs?
I loved when you were speaking about the people who have their side hustles, because I really think
Mhm,
that in the same way sort of Depop, I suppose, was just like a university side hustle. I really think that anyone who's got a side hustle has that entrepreneurial gene, because for a lot of people, there's like entrepreneurs and then there's entrepreneurs, and a lot of people are like, oh, that would be great. And great, that would be great, but they never ever do it. And if you've actually got to the
mhm,
point where you've set up a side hustle, you're someone who's had an idea that they kind of like, and then who's gone through the motions where they're now doing something about that. And that is all you need in order to create a business. So in terms of advice, I really think more people, I mean, it's hard to say because obviously different people are in different privileged situations and everything, but I just think that 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 leap of pursuing it is really difficult, but it's so worth it in the end. And sort of I did a big push for my sister, for example. Like she was working in sort of like Soho at an advertising agency, and now she's a full-time artist. And that was very much me being like, you love doing it, so just do it, and the passion will create the success. So as long as you are actually passionate about what you want to create, I just think the leap and sort of the necessity for it to do well usually is what ends up making it do well. So if you're like, oh, I can't because I need to make this amount of money and this comes in from my proper job for rent, if you don't have anything coming from that proper job, you will be working so hard on your business that hopefully that will
mhm.
then pay for rent. But obviously, that's very much from a privileged situation. So I'm pushing people to take the leap only if you can, but really just try and do it, because it's just like, I think it's worth it in the end.
Yeah. First of all, I love that term entrepreneur. I've never heard that
Have
before.
you not?
No, I've not. I love that.
It's so many people, because a lot of people have ideas, and are like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely I want to do something at some point, and then 20 years down the line they're still sort of talking about it. It's really, I think there's difference between that and someone actually, yeah, doing what they say they want to do.
Yeah, and we have heard that before from other guests that, the number one piece of advice is just do it. If you really
Yeah.
wanna do it, then do it.
Do it. Yeah, literally.
I think that's a lovely note to start wrapping up, but before we do, where can people find Sojo and what are the plans for going live?
Yeah, so you will be able to find Sojo on Instagram, which is our main port of call. It's at Sojo_app. But we are planning on going live with the proper website and app, iOS and Android, on the first week of January. So essentially, if you're listening to this, then that's when it will be downloadable for you. And I would absolutely love any people who want to book orders and sort of be our first users and first testers, because I really want feedback on how it all goes. Very stressed, but like really would love some wonderful people to book their clothes to be done.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. It's gonna align perfectly with, like, getting Christmas presents that don't fit me, and then I can just make them fit me.
Yes, exactly. No, that's 100% what we want for January, because it's so, the amount of waste that comes out of Christmas is
Yeah,
obviously like really obscene. A lot of people get a lot of joke presents, which is funny in
yeah.
that 10 seconds, but like obviously anyway, yeah, Christmas is a big time for waste. So we definitely want to try and reduce any sort of people trying things on and then being like, oh, and maybe forgetting to return it. So yeah, Sojo will be there in January for all your Christmas clothes woes.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited. Okay, and then the last question I have that we finish every episode with is what gives you confidence?
is it wrong to say external validation? I mean, when external validation is in when things are going right. So essentially what gives me confidence is when I can set a goal and I can achieve it. So that the actual success and the metrics behind the success will give me confidence. So if I do well in the first month of Sojo, that will give me confidence to do well in the second month, and that type of thing. That's what gives me confidence. But I want to say a nicer answer. I just don't.
I think that's a great answer.
Okay, fine. Fine.
Honestly, we accept anything from like listening to Beyonce makes me confident to
Oh my God.
succeeding makes me confident. So yeah, it's all
Who
relevant.
doesn't feel confident listening to Beyonce? Literally, that's my answer as well.
Love that. Two great answers to the question. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been fantastic. I've loved chatting to you today.
Thank you for having me. It wasn't as stressful as I thought it would be.
Good, I'm glad. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe or follow so you don't miss the latest on finding your inner entrepreneur.